Okay, so everybody's had a chance to play around with variables. I saw some cool things happening over here. You're making your objects move all over the place using a few different variables. I saw over here you're changing the size of the radius. That was kind of cool by putting the variable in the radius instead. Nicely done. So we're going to talk about another concept now, and this concept pairs really nicely with variables. The concept is called an if statement, using if statements. If statements are sort of like tests that we can run on our variables and then give the computer instructions based off the result of those tests. It's almost like checking inside our containers, asking the computer to check it, and then giving it instructions to do a certain thing if that value meets a criteria. For example, if that value is too big, right, the computer can do something. If that value is too small or becomes negative, there's all sorts of different tests that we can run using our if statements. So I've got the same program I had before here. The only thing I tweaked was on line 15. I changed it from y equals y plus 5 to y equals y plus 2. Now, for those of you who are playing around with adding different values to your variable, what do you think the effect of that is going to be? Yep, right. Yes, it's going to change the speed. Exactly. Yeah. So when we say y equals y plus 5, we're adding 5 every time our draw function runs, and that's going to go pretty quickly. If we go y equals y plus 2, that's just going to slow things down. So same animation, but slowed down. Let's see what this looks like right now. So my circles appear just like last time, and they slowly move down the screen. Good. So what I'd really like for my circles to do is once they drop off the screen, not to go away. I'd love them to come back to where they started to, and then continue to fall again, and just go in an endless cycle. Right. To do that, I'm going to use an if statement. And to set up an if statement is really easy. We just type if, followed by a pair of round brackets, followed by a pair of curly braces. And typically we separate these curly braces over two different lines so we have some room to place our instructions because the instructions go inside the curly braces. So you're probably asking, okay, well, if the instructions for the computer go inside the curly braces, what goes inside the round braces? Well, this is where our test goes. And so we put our test inside the round braces. If that test ends up being true, or the condition that is in the test is satisfied, then the instructions will happen. And if the condition is not satisfied, all right, if the test ends up being false, the computer just skips the instructions, just ignores them. Yeah. So the first thing we need to do is test if our circle is going to fall off the page. And that's a bit of a tricky thing because I actually need to know the value of y when the circles start to fall off the page. Can anybody give me an idea of what that might be? It's kind of a tricky question, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So remember we created our canvas way back in line 2, and we created it to be 600 pixels wide and 400 pixels tall. Right, right. So exactly. So that means that once the y value hits 400, because it goes from 0 to 400 on its way down, the circles start to fall off the page. So my test here in my if statement is going to be if y is greater than 400. If y gets bigger than 400, I want the computer to do something. Okay, so if y is greater than 400, what would I like it to do? Well, I would like it to just return the y value to what it was when it started. I just want y to be equal to 100 again. Hopefully that'll place my circles back up at the top, and then the animation will continue as it did before. This time, however, it should go in a loop and should continue to cycle through. Before I compile, what do I need to do? Exactly, save my program. So I'm going to go Control S. I will save it, and then I will compile. Here we go. So my circles fall. I've got my fingers crossed, and look at that. There we go. They bounce back up to the top. Once the y value gets to 400, they go back up to where they had been before. All right. Now we're going to talk about how to get the circles to bounce off the bottom.